So this summer has been really interesting when it comes to the theatrical box office. Summer is usually blockbuster season, but as I discussed in an earlier video, Disney, Pixar, and Warner Brothers and other companies have taken major hits, and these flops just keep coming. This time being Indiana Jones 5 and Ruby Gillman Teenage Kraken, both underperforming on their opening weekend, with Ruby Gillman being Dreamworks' worst opening release ever. And Disney definitely didn't need another flop. I do think this is an interesting summer, and I wonder what Hollywood will take away from all of this, if anything. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny is the 5th installment to the long-running Indiana Jones franchise. Over the past decade or so, we've been seeing a lot of reboots, remakes, and sequels, because Hollywood typically views them as safe bets, since they have name recognition and nostalgia on their side. However, this summer seems to prove that that's not really the case anymore, with Dial of Destiny totally flopping over the 4th of July weekend. This is supposed to be a send-off to the character, but the whole thing was kind of sad in my opinion. Indy is now old, alone, jaded, and basically ready to die. Even his students don't respect him. He ends up going on one last adventure with the daughter of an old friend of his, Helena Shaw, except she's pretty insufferable. She's really mean and rude, clearly thinks very highly of herself, and celebrates at very inappropriate times. Not to spoil too much, but there's one point where they have to escape from the bad guys, but not everyone makes it out. But Helena still celebrates anyway, and Indy has to tell her to shut up because she's being really disrespectful. I just didn't like her. The whole thing just feels like a nostalgia-ridden cash grab instead of a proper love letter to the franchise, like they said it was supposed to be. And it's kinda sad to see another Harrison Ford character end up sad and alone in his old age. Does Hollywood know you can grow old and be happy and surrounded by loved ones? Seriously, Hollywood, maybe send these characters off with a bang instead of being miserable. People have been asking for new stories and new IPs, since Hollywood's been pumping out sequels, reboots, and remakes so much it's pretty much become a meme at this point. But now we're seeing new IPs like Pixar's Elemental or Dreamworks' Ruby Gillman flop. However, the marketing behind these two films made them look pretty derivative of other stories. Like Elemental looked a lot like Zootopia from Disney, but with elements instead of animals. And the trailers for Ruby Gillman also made it look pretty generic, with Dreamworks poking fun at Disney by having their antagonist looking almost exactly like Ariel from their animated movie The Little Mermaid, which also had their live-action remake premiere around this time, which couldn't exactly have been a coincidence. I was hoping the film would do something to surprise me, but ultimately it was pretty straightforward, and played out mostly the way I figured it would. It also didn't help that the trailers gave a lot of it away. I don't know why they feel the need to give so much away in the trailers. I think trailers can be really important to a movie's success, and I think it was a major contributing factor to this and Elemental's failures at the box office. I'm sure these films will do fine on streaming, but as for their initial release, I'm honestly not surprised things went the way they did. When it comes to people who say they want new stories, I don't think it's enough to give us a new IP with a story that feels pretty cliche and trope heavy. Like Ruby Gillman is about a Kraken who's hiding as a human girl, despite looking nothing like a human, but they just tell people they're from Canada.
And remember,
If anyone asks, we're from Canada.
And everybody just buys it. Anyway, there was a war between Krakens and mermaids, and mermaids convinced everyone that Krakens were the truly evil ones, when in reality the reverse is true. So it's a reverse villain trope. So Ruby and her family are hiding out when a mermaid named Chelsea shows up, and the trailer shows them having a giant kaiju battle. So I wonder what the climax of this film could possibly be. Good job, marketing team. If they're going to show this much in the trailers, they could at least have an extra twist to keep us guessing. I don't think it deserved to bomb as hard as it did. It is a cute movie, but I'm not surprised it's going straight to streaming. I think people are expecting a little more impact when it comes to the film they're watching and the experience they get when they go to theaters, considering the fact that there's so much competition for entertainment now, whether it's streaming services or even just YouTube, and that's not a bad thing. But I think Hollywood also needs to understand that if people are going to go out to the theater, they're really looking for something special, instead of something audiences feel comfortable waiting to see on streaming later. On the one hand, many don't really care for them squeezing franchises for all they're worth, or even more than they're worth, which is something we see happen quite often, like 6 Terminator movies. And I feel like that happened with Indiana Jones too. Do we actually need 5 Indiana Joneses? And now Pixar has a 5th Toy Story in the works too. But I guess that's not surprising since the last successful movie they've had in theaters was Toy Story 4 back in 2019. Granted, Lightyear didn't work out despite being affiliated with Toy Story also, but maybe they think getting the band back together is enough to get people in seats. It is possible to have a successful film that's based on a previous franchise, like Puss in Boots 2: The Last Last Wish was a sequel movie to a spin-off of Shrek, but it had a really interesting story to tell and likable characters that have really meaningful arcs. And even the characters that don't have arcs, like Jack Horner and Perito, are really entertaining and in Perito's case, very impactful. So it is possible to reinvigorate a franchise, but they need to have a really strong story, likable and interesting characters, and a memorable experience. We are spending like $20 on a ticket and snacks, maybe more in some cases. When it comes to making movies, the budget of the film is not the only cost they have to deal with. There's also the marketing budget, and theaters will take half of the ticket costs. So even if a film is able to make more money than it took to make the film, it doesn't actually mean the film was successful. So while big budget blockbusters used to reign, it might be beneficial for movie studios to cut back on some of the costs. And when I say that, I don't mean not paying your workers like the VFX artists. I think this is a trying time for Hollywood, and if they don't course correct, I think a lot of these companies are going to take a big hit. They really need to consider what projects to put in theaters or what would do better on streaming, along with how they spend their money and resources. Disney, for one, has promised to cut back on how much content they put on Disney Plus, admitting the way they've been going hasn't been good for them, or the service overall. Hopefully this means they'll be more strategic in the future. I do hope they go back to adapting fairy tales. It'd be really cool if they could adapt ones from around the world. Also, maybe bring back Gigantic, that'd be really cool. I do think companies like Disney and Dreamworks still have a lot of potential, which they've proven with films like Encanto and Puss in Boots 2. And given that this is the 100-year anniversary of Disney, it'd be great to see them go for another 100 years. But sometimes it can be hard to see that happening. So hopefully this will be the kick in the pants they need. I guess we'll have to see how everything goes going forward. But that's just my opinion. What do you guys think? Have you seen Ruby Gillman or Indiana Jones 5? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching, everyone. I really appreciate it. Before I go, I want to give a shout out to @HorseheadBackup on Twitter for this cool piece of fan art. It's a reference to an Outkast album. Thank you so much for the piece of fan art. We both really appreciate it. I'd also like to give a shout out to our members: Stutania, Tyrant Carnivore, Shiny Orc Boy, The Rabbit Mancer, General Bolivar, Depth Charge Media, Samaru163, Gabby Hime, Verdant Range, JVR, Hussyman42, Nixel, Phil C, Taylor Ramirez, Caleb Nelson, Dakari the Professor, Equestron, Norman Sweetcream, Way Beyond Coincidence, Garcia XV Legend, Hunter Rose, Dashhound, 80s Nostalgia Guy, Felix Bam, Soundboy00, Owen Wildish, Player Zero, Kitsune Fiora, Lucas Geist, Dana Dine Executive, J Draws, Ninja Rex, Blue Spirit, Bandito Bane, Lil, and Meowsers. Thank you all so much for your support. If you'd like to become a member, you can hit the join button next to the subscribe button. And if you enjoyed this content, you can leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel, and that part's free. You also have a Buy Me Coffee if you want to support us that way, but any support would be greatly appreciated. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.